Team discovers evidence of prehistoric human activity in Falkland Islands by University of Maine. Kit Hamley tolls a large male sea lion skulls from a bone pile in New Iceland's Dhu. Since its first recorded sighting by European explorers in the 6000s, scientists and historians have believed that Europeans were the first people to ever set foot on the Falkland Islands. Findings from the New University of Maine-led study, however, suggests otherwise, that human activity on the islands predates European arrivals by centuries. Quid Hamley, National Science Foundation graduate search fellow with the Maine Climate Change Institute, spearheaded the first ever scientific investigation into prehistoric human presence on the southern Atlantic archipelago. She and her team collected animals' bones, charcoal records, and other evidence from across the islands over multiple expeditions, and examined them for indications of human activity using radiocarbon dating and other laboratory techniques. One notable sign of European human activity derives from a 8,000 years old charcoal record collected from a column of peat on New Iceland, located in southwestern edge of the territory. According to their researchers, the record showed signs of a marked increase in fire activity in 150 centuries after Christ CE. The abrupt and significant spikes in 1410 CE and 1770 CE, the latter of which corresponds with initial European settlements. Researchers also gathered sea lions and penguin samples of New Island near to site where a landowner discovered that stone projectile point that inconsistent with the technology indigenous South Americans have used for the past 100 years. The bones were heaped in discrete piles at the one side. Hamley says the location, volume, and types of bones indicated that the mounds were likely assembled by humans. Most of the evidence Hamley and her colleagues collected indicated that indigenous South Americans likely traveled to the Falkland Islands between 1275 CE and 1450 CE. Arrivals date prior to 1275 CE, however, cannot be ruled by because some evidence dates back even earlier, according to the researchers. For example, the team found a tooth from an extinct Falkland Island fox called the Warad with a radiocarbon date 3450 BCE, the oldest of the species. Regardless, all of the team's finds were that people lived in the archipelago before British navigator John Strong in 1690, the first European to set foot on the archipelago. Indigenous people likely visited the island for multiple short-term stays, and as opposed to long-term occupation, according to the humane researchers. As a result, they left few cultural materials there, but enough for Hamley and her colleagues to find a discernible anthropogenic and paleoecological footprint and conduct their study. These findings broadened our understanding of indigenous movements and activity in the remote of and harsh South Atlantic Ocean, says Hamley, a humane PhD student of ecology and environmental science. This is really exciting because it opens up new doors for collaboration with descendant indigenous communities to increase our understanding of past ecological changes throughout the region. People have long speculated that it was likely that indigenous South Americans had reached the Falkland Islands, so it's really rewarding to play a role in helping bring that part of the past to life of the islands. You main researchers who participate in the study with Hamley include her advisor Jacqueline Gill, an associate professor of paleoecology and plant ecology, Daniel Sandveis, a professor of anthropology, and Brenda Hall, a professor of glacial geology. Other investigations investigators involved in the research include Dulcinea Groft, a postdoctoral research scientist at the University of Wyoming, and former humane PhD student Catherine Krasinski, an assistant professor of anthropology at Adelphi University. John Soughton, a researcher with the Department of Earth Systems Science at the University of California, Irvine. Paul Brickley, Executive Director of the South Atlantic Environmental Research Institute, and Thomas Lowell, a geology professor with the University of Cincinnati. Science Advances has published a report of their findings. Hamley's most recent study builds on the research into the wara, Ducicion australis, and extinct species of fox. The wara was the only native and terrestrial mammal to reside on the Falkland Islands at the time of European arrival. Subsequent hunting wiped the species in 1856, making it the first extinct canid in the historic record, Hamley says. For years, various scholars, including Charles Darwin, have debated the wara's origin, and now it came to the islands. Hamley hypothesizes that human may have introduced the species into the archipelago prior to European settlement. Many previously rejected the theory based on a prior lack of scientific evidence, but the latest findings from Handley's team reopens that possibility, she says. Indigenous South Americans may have domesticated wara as they have with other foxes and canids, and brought them to the islands during their voyages and short-term stays. During the 2018 expeditions to the islands, Hamley and her colleagues found 3 wara bone samples at Spring Point Farm in West Falkland. Carbon dating and isotopic analysis revealed that wara whose bones were analyzed had a marine-based diet consisting primarily of apex marine predators like sea lions and fur seals, and similar diets to seafaring indigenous South Americans in prehistoric times. According to researchers, while these findings should reflect coastal scavenging, it may exemplify the food their potential human counterparts were producing and eating, researchers say. This study has the potential to change the trajectory of future ecological research in the Falklands, says Hamley. The introduction of a top predator like the wara could have had profound implications for the biodiversity of the islands, which are home to ground nesting seabirds such as penguins, albatross, and cormorants. It also changes the ever captivating story of past human canine relationships. We know that indigenous South Americans domesticated foxes, but this study helps show how potentially important these animals were to those communities extending back thousands of years. Hamley conducted her research during 3 expeditions to the Falkland Islands in 2014, 2016, and 2018, including the 2016 journey. She participated in a UN Mains follows a research program through which scientists give key 12 students a glimpse of their work through live expeditions updates, Twitter chats, and videos. The study led by Hamley contributes to a growing body of scientific investigations into the ecological, anthropological, and climate history of the Falkland Islands conducted by humane researchers. A 2020 Maine-led study discovered that the establishment of seabird colonies of the islands in response to abrupt regional cooling period to 5,000 years ago changed its ecosystems. As the world warms, we hope our growing understanding of pre-colonial history of the Falklands will help the decision makers balance the needs of wildlife and people who rely on ecotourism, fisheries, and other industries, says Jill, an NSF career researcher who has named a 2020 Friend of the Planet by the National Center of Science Education. We're only just beginning to piece together the role people played in the Falklands before European settlement. Because of centuries of colonialism on the mainland, a lot of the oral knowledge about this period has lost. Western science needs updating, and we hope future work will be done in collaboration with the modern-day indigenous people in the region, with their ancestors were the first spurs here.